You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everyone? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Z Money. What's up, Z?
Oh man, this story today is bringing back lots of trauma in my life.
In your life?
Really go. Yeah. It's funny because if you listen all the way to the end, our guest today is going to tell you about his worst house ever. And he does a lot of renovation. So it is really interesting to hear. But it reminds me of a house that I took a friend through. So I have this friend who really wanted to do a big renovation project. And we went to a house in Broomfield, and it literally, I think I talked to you that day, but it literally had like dog feces everywhere, and there were animals through the house, and it was like a total hoarder's house, and it was super dark, and just the smell was so intense. And what was really hard is that when we walked through the home, there was obviously children that lived there. Like nobody was there at the time, but it was just one of those moments where you're like, should we call child services? Like, what do you do in that situation when you're around something just so gnarly? And just feeling for the people that are in that situation. So he has a similar story at the end, but I'm curious if you've seen any crazy homes like that.
Honestly, like I think I've been fortunate. Like I haven't seen anything too crazy.
Wow.
I've seen a fair share of hoarder houses with some interesting things inside them, but nothing where there's like tons and tons of feces and dead animals and all that other stuff or whatever. So I've been fortunate, and I just don't understand how people can live in these situations. Like, shoot, we have like too many Amazon boxes in our living room, and I'm like, I gotta clean this up, right? Like, it's just, I don't know.
I think it speaks to mental illness, but if you listen to the story today, we've got lots of really great nuggets. I feel like he has a lot on preparedness, a lot on the value of partnership. And I just think like it's a really rich episode.
Yeah, delayed gratification is a really big piece of it. And he really has done almost everything. So, I highly recommend listening this one through. It is a longer episode because he has done so much. So definitely listen all the way through. We've got some great stories at the end. And yeah, let's bring him on. Brad LaBrie, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you for having me.
Dude, this feels like deja vu, except no one knows it except us. Yeah. So apparently Brad and I, and back when Nick was on the show, we did an episode that did not record. And I did not even realize that until right now. So that's on me, but we're glad to have you back, brother.
Hey man, I'm glad to be here. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. I know we catch up regularly, and I appreciate you trusting me enough to send your clients and stuff, but it's always a privilege.
For sure, man. For sure. So let's get into it, man. Let's take it way back, right? When did you first hear about financial independence?
That's a good question. I probably heard that term way after I started it. I guess I just decided that I want to do something different. When I was young, I was an athlete. I was a star athlete, went to college, kind of got caught up in kind of, the idea of the world pushes of go to school, get a job, have fancy things. So when I was done with that, I bought everything I could. I had just all the toys, and there was just a point in time when I started to look at people in where I grew up, that were 10 years older than me, and kind of went that same path. And I was like, I don't want to do the same trajectory they are, living paycheck to paycheck, buying new vehicles, buying new toys, buying a bigger house. I want to do something different. So
Did you just subtly drop that you were a star athlete? Is that
I think
self-proclaimed star athlete, or what was your gig?
I played football. So
Okay.
I played in college.
Nice. Who'd you play for?
I played for a small school here in Michigan. So yeah, I suppose partially self-proclaimed, but
I'm just
it was fun. It was fun. You know, I learned a lot. I mean, that's where a lot of my confidence to do a lot of things that we do now comes from, because you know, I succeeded. You know, at that I succeeded. I was a all-state baseball player as well. And so like just transitioning, kind of having that level of confidence allowed me to, so on our podcast, House Hacking Success, I bring out a lot of athletes, former athletes that are house hacking. And we have a lot of conversations about this that I think at least I had never really considered. But so much of what we learn as athletes is applicable to being a serious investor and a long-term investor. It's delayed gratification. You know, if you're a football player, if you're a basketball player, if you're any kind of sport that kind of does a season or a year-long practice just for a small, you know, like in football, we have 2 to 3 months, but we'll practice all year round, right? We'll practice all during summers, 2-a-days, all of that, just to prepare for one single night. And I think a lot of that I was able to carry over without even really realizing it. So yeah.
I would agree, man. There seems to be a lot of parallels drawn between sports and especially football. I feel like I know a lot of football players that are now in real estate. And just what you said, dude, delayed gratification, right? Like I know me, right? My first house hack, I was sleeping behind a curtain, right? Like still making decent money, but sleeping behind a curtain in the living room because I knew that there was a better future ahead. And I was like so into that delayed gratification. I was trying to delay everything as far as I could out.
Chad and I was in Chad Carson's course, helping him out with the house hackers, and a lot of fun. Love doing it. I'm sure some of your listeners, you know, read his books and all of that. But we were talking about it last night. You know, he played for Clemson, and just there's so much that him and I have been able to take from football and put it directly into our investing career. You know, and probably none greater than delayed gratification.
I love that. So let's take it back, man. So it sounds like you discovered the term financial independence after you started on your journey. So what was the start of your journey? Like maybe it was football, right? But like when did you start applying that towards business and real estate?
Sure. Well, I my first deal, I probably lost 15,000-20,000. It was just a train wreck. I bought this house, and long of the short, it is the tenant got murdered. The Flint water crisis hit, and you know, I lost all my money. So all within, there's a story. We can go as deep as we want, but it was very interesting. I learned a lot, and I was actually, and probably because of, you know, understanding the importance of failure that I learned, you know, in my sports career, I was able to, instead of taking that and saying this doesn't work, I was able to step back and say, I need to get better. I need to apply myself in a different way.
The for real deal.
So, Z, is there anything you wanted to add before we ask Brad to get into it?
There's something I do want to go back to, but no, go ahead. Let's hear about it. I mean, you can't say that somebody got murdered and then be like, oh, let's just like not talk about it. We need to hear about that.
Yeah,
it's
we
kind
need
of
to hear
intense.
that. It wasn't
this
murder.
is Detroit, but I mean, damn.
Yeah. Brad is the one that poisoned the water, and then he was I see you, dude. Yeah.
No, so yeah, we you know, I showed up there one day at a repair request. Didn't know, you know, lights were off. I walked right past him, had no idea he was sitting on the couch. Walked upstairs, did a minor repair, came back down, kind of got that feeling that somebody's watching you, and turned on the light, and there he is sitting on the couch. I'll never forget it. But
is he dead?
100% dead. There is a giant slug hole through his head. There's a big picture window behind him. No blood splatter, no bullet hole going through the window. Somebody obviously murdered him somewhere else and set him on the couch. The police came in, obviously called the police. They're like, suicide, and his 3-month-old pit bull mauled his face off. So I'm like, there's zero chance that happened, but whatever helps you guys, you know, keep those stats down, I guess. So it was an interesting situation. Like I said, the Flint water crisis became the real deal during that time too. And so it was an interesting time. I mean, I was 20 years old when all that happened, you know, so I had no idea about any of the whole world of real estate. I thought you just bought real estate and you did well, but I certainly learned otherwise.
So your first deal, there was some dude that got murked in the house. Like how, okay, there's like so much, like one, how did you react just like personally? Like, was that
Yeah.
traumatizing for you? And then two, like how do you deal with that as a real estate investor?
I don't know if it was traumatizing. I mean, I suppose a little bit. It wasn't like severely traumatizing. It was definitely a situation I never thought I would find myself in. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember really ever second guessing real estate. I just remember saying, okay, I need to get better. I need to find better areas. I need to find higher quality tenants. I need to find better situations, position myself, to do a little bit better. So immediately, and we can touch back on this property, but I transitioned from buy and hold, which that one was, to flipping. So immediately I decided, all right, I'm gonna try a different path. So yeah.
So looking back, I'm just curious if there were warning signs for you about like maybe this was a really dangerous neighborhood, or when you were getting this tenant, there were some kind of signs. Like, are there things that you probably would have done differently in the same situation, knowing what you know now?
Well, the warning sign was probably that I traded $1,000 truck for the house. So I didn't have, the place was, I didn't pay a ton for it. It had like 5,000 in back taxes, a few grand in water bills, whatever. So I ended up probably paying, maybe 8,000 to 10,000 for the property to clear all of that stuff and the truck. So that's another thing I left out. And actually, you know what, the craziest thing. So I own self-storage, and that same guy last week walked into my building wanting to rent space from me. And I was like, dude, I know you from somewhere. It took me a minute. That was the guy I bought it from. So that was
not the dead
super
guy,
cool.
right?
No, not the dead guy, the guy that I actually bought it from. And
Yeah.
he was telling me about like, he got hosed in that whole situation. He had like 12 of them. And anyway, but,
Wow.
but yeah, that was interesting. So yeah, then from there, I mean, the place was completely ransacked. Like all the electrical, they took every inch of copper out. They pulled the wires down. So I had to rewire it, replumb it, added a bathroom, things like that, fixed it up, rented it out. So yeah, there was certainly a lot of things I would have done differently. Being young and dumb, I just thought you could, buy a property cheap, fix it up, and get great tenants.
Yeah. Can we get into the numbers a little bit on that one, just
Sure.
to make it a little bit more clear? So
Sure.
it sounds like you picked up the whole thing, maybe the house itself for 1,000, back taxes, liens, whatever. So
Sure.
total all in was 10,000. And I suspect you paid cash for that.
Yeah, about 10,000.
9,000 of cash in a truck or something.
Yeah, give or take. Honestly, I mean, I don't remember. I don't have any records of any. I don't. But I think it was approximately probably 10 grand.
Okay.
Maybe 15,000, but I think probably closer to 10.
Okay, let's call it 10. And then how much did you put for the rehab?
10 or 15.
Okay.
I did all the work too. So just a light little rehab, got somebody in there. So probably was all in around the 25,000 mark.
Okay. Did you refinance it, or did you just rent it out?
No. I mean, back then, I was a 20-year-old construction worker, so I don't even think I could get a loan at that point. And yeah, so I just used cash.
Okay. So you got $25,000 in. Now you've got a nice house that is livable. How much did you rent it for?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't even remember. Maybe 600, something
600.
like that.
So you were basically making 600 cash. You subtract taxes and insurance, right? So maybe you're making $500, $400 a month on that thing. And that was the dead guy when he was alive. The dead guy was paying you.
Yeah, he was paying me. Yep.
And was he a good tenant?
He was a good tenant. He was one of our workers. So yeah.
Okay. And so okay, so you've got this property. What happened? So obviously, you took care of the dead guy.
Sure.
What happened next? Like, oh, sorry, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So
you're so insensitive. It's like, it's somebody that you worked with, Brad. Like this
it was, yeah. So yeah, he was a friend of ours. My brother had a construction company, so he worked for my brother. And yeah, it was a tough situation. I mean, we helped the family. They got their own, because after the police department ruled that it was a suicide, they decided to get their own coroner. And, he came to a conclusion that somebody had, shot him. So anyway, yeah, it was a tough situation all around. And during that time that we're trying to get all this figured out, it got broken into again, and they took all the plumbing, all the electrical, just a water heater, furnace again. Yeah. So that at that point, after they had done that, and we were still working on the whole murder, I just turned the keys back into what we call land bank. And so they ended up foreclosing on it for taxes, I suppose. But so yeah, I just washed my hands clean of it. I was done with it. And yeah.
Wow.
Well, so you're lucky to not have a mortgage, essentially, because you
Yeah.
could just turn it in and call
Sure.
it a day. And
Sure.
it's not that big of a loss, but
Sure.
yeah, it's pretty
Sure.
unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think a whole lot about it, but like back then, that was everything I had. Like I was saving
Yeah.
and saving and saving. I sold like all my vehicles. So basically, I think I had like it. I grew up in a small town where like all the dudes drove trucks, right? And so like I had 3 trucks and all of that, and I was just like cold turkey. So I sold all my trucks, sold my 5th wheel, sold a couple of my toys, and took all that money and bought this house. And then like 6 months later, I lost it all. So it was a mini tragedy. I probably shed a couple tears, but I quickly, just got back and started working and saving up again.
I want to touch in on that because that was the note that I had to get back to. Is you were talking about when you were first learning about financial independence, you were looking around and everybody that you knew that was doing that same thing, collecting a lot of toys, spending all their money. I think you were going to say that by the time they were older, they still looked pretty broke, and that maybe wasn't the trajectory you were wanting.
They were living the exact same life. Yeah. And I looked at that, and I don't even know what sparked me to like consider that look ahead. But I'm like, man, like if I keep doing this, like I could keep buying stuff and whatever, but I don't know. I just always had this feeling that I was meant for something bigger. And every time I take something on and succeed at it, it just doesn't feel like that's the thing that I'm meant for. And so, I don't know, it's just something, and I think we all probably have it a little bit inside, just that feeling that we're meant to do something to change other people's lives, help other people. And I had that feeling. And so that was the big driver that like, if I don't, again, back to delayed gratification, like if I don't delay my personal gratification, sell all these things, invest in real estate, because at the time, that's all I knew. That was my only path to kind of making it, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I'm curious about your upbringing. Were you pretty simple? Like, was it kind of blue collar and you didn't really have anybody to look up to? Yeah. You kind of have that vibe of being like scrappy and wanting to do something different than you've seen around you.
Yeah. And I dropped out of college, and so it wasn't like I could earn my way in corporate America, or something like that. And so I had to be. And if I didn't live super frugally and very intentionally, unlike everyone else, like so I think by the time that I sold my trucks after that, because I had gotten into General Motors, which, in where I'm at, like if you get into General Motors, you're set for life, right? Like that's the notion. And when I left, like I had just so many people like, they're like, how in the heck could you ever leave there? Whatever. But, I sold my trucks and I was driving this crappy little car that was beat up. And I'll never forget, people were making fun of me and all this. And I'd give myself many pep talks. I'm like, you can do it. Like, don't let them get to you. Don't let them get to you. And like, I'd have these pep talks with myself, cause like, they're all like, they're trying to get to me. And I'm like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. And so I had to be scrappy for sure.
That's the athlete coming out for sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, I mean, by all intents and purposes, like you're living the dream in Flint, Michigan, or wherever you're at with where GM is. Who like planted that seed of real estate in your head if it wasn't your parents?
Yeah. I mean, my parents never really owned, they didn't own investment properties or anything, but my dad he always encouraged me that I could do whatever I wanted. So, although he never really taught me much about real estate per se, he did give me the confidence to just go do it. He gave me, I guess, especially as a younger individual, like if you have that person you look up to, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a brother, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's just somebody down the street that you think is, is successful and whatever. Like when you get that vote of approval and you're young, it gives you that little extra notion to just go do it. So like where I'm at now, I work with a lot of people, kind of that they're at right now what I was at that point. And I always I'm very, very intentional of trying to loan my confidence, because I do have an enormous amount of confidence in myself and in maybe real estate or whatever it is. And I know that from my experience that like all it was for me was that little notion of confidence a couple people in my life that were the key people gave me that allowed me to get there. And the proudest thing that I had, like the proudest accomplishment I have in life, is the couple dozen friends of mine that I call true friends that I've been able to loan that confidence to. And they were able to do it when they thought they never could, and so yeah.
Yeah. I just want to get back to like, how do you get through something when everyone is telling you to do the opposite, right?
Sure.
Like, I think a lot of us, when we're on our financial independence journey, especially if your friends and your family have never heard of this before, and you tell someone you're going to retire at 30 or 35, they're like, yeah, good luck. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're not going to do it. Just get a job. But, you know, I had people berating me, my parents, my grandparents, everyone that I've ever loved and took advice from was telling me to do the opposite. And I think that's just like the pep talk. I would do the same thing. I'd like do my affirmations, and I would like be at the gym running, and I'd be like, I'm going to fucking do this. Right. Or, you know, and I just think like, if you have problems with that, like that self pep talk is super helpful.
And you know what people didn't have 20 years ago that we have now is this podcast right here. So probably the biggest turning point, like I was doing some of these things, and we can talk about how I, you know, kind of went after this, but the turning point in my life, even though I was still kind of progressing in real estate, was one day I intentionally said that I wasn't going to go out to the bars with my buddies from GM. Like, I liked them, and I wasn't an alcoholic or anything like that, but I'd go out on Friday nights. We talk about stupid shit and, you know, whatever. It was never productive. And I I'll never forget, like, I was like, you know what? Like, I like them. I'll hang out with them. I'm not going to go there because it just, you know, it's just a waste of my time, and I should be reading or whatever. And I made that decision, and I would just listen to podcasts or read books, or I didn't really have, I can't really say I had a lot of great friends that were on this path, but my friends were, you know, Chad Carson, Bigger Pockets, you know, all the, you know, even like Dave Ramsey, and like all these people that were talking to me and telling me, like, if you stay on this path, if you do it, like you can make it, like you can make it. And it kept giving me that horizon. Like, if I'm scrappy enough, you know, if I don't listen to these people, like, you know, I can do it. And so I hear that a lot too. Like, you know, people saying, hey, like, I don't really have people in my corner. I'm like, listen, I can't really say that I had a ton either. Like, my dad gave me a little bit of confidence. He certainly never told me, you know, he didn't understand real estate really. But like, those people at Bigger Pockets did, you know, all those sorts of people that I could listen to every single day on my way to work, on my way back from work, you know, and that's how I loaned the confidence from listening to those types of people.
All right. So let's go into your second deal,
Sure.
because this seems more like the real deal for you. How long did it take for you to kind of get over licking your wounds and saving back up when you'd lost basically everything to start flipping?
You know, I don't know how long it was. It probably was, probably 2 years, year and a half, 2 years it took in between. And so, so I bought a house. It was, it had, you know, it's just a typical ugly house, carpeted in every square inch. I decided to do the majority of work myself. So I think from close to close was about 13 months. I think it took me 8 or 9 months to actually do the rehab, you know, but approximately speaking, I made, you know, 30 grand, maybe, you know, give or take. And, you know, and so, yeah, I learned a ton during that process. Hired out, you know, some plumbing, some electrical. I can't remember if I did any HVAC work or not, but I would have definitely hired that out as well. Everything else, I learned DIY. You know, I went to Home Depot workshops. I grabbed their books, watched some YouTube, you know, talked to people that knew the industry. I think I did hire some people just to be some laborers as well during that timeline, so it could help me expedite the process. But it was a great experience.
Great. So it would help us to know more about the numbers, but I also am just curious, like, how did you find this house? And I imagine there was a point where you were like, screw houses, I'm not doing that. And then there was a changeover to like, well, let me look in this place again. Kind of like what happened there.
I don't think I never really said anything about like, you know, I don't even think I ever thought like screw houses or screw real estate or anything like that. It was just, I got to get better. So my idea was better is, all right, let's go flip in the suburbs. So, and I don't really know why, probably, you know, reading books and stuff or whatever, it looked better. Numbers were better out there, whatever, prices were higher. So I just decided to do that. I bought it for, you know, it was on the MLS, bought it for 60 something thousand, 66, 67,000, something like that. And I remember being kind of all in right around like the 105 number, you know, kind of all my living expenses and all that during that timeline. And like I said, I did pretty much all the work myself, and I sold it for 135 maybe.
So yeah, you mentioned the $30,000 profit.
Yeah.
Were you working a job at this time too?
Yeah, I was working full time.
Okay, so you made a $30,000 side hustle, right? Because a year to make $30,000 isn't the best investment.
Yep.
But if it's a side hustle, that's a different story.
Yep. So I was working I was working full time, 60 plus hours a week.
Were you at GM?
Working at GM. So I worked for GM for 7 years. I worked at GM, and I eventually, I don't know if I did it during that. No, I think it was the next couple, but I went to midnights so that I could spend all day, right after this deal, I decided to go to midnight so I could spend all day in real estate. And then, just work at night at GM. So I did that for, 5 years or whatever.
When did you sleep?
Never.
Yeah. Hey, it doesn't show, man.
It's for the week. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I said sleep for the week.
Yeah. Okay. So you basically got into real estate. You had that really bad first deal. The second deal it seems like you learned a lot. This one was a little bit more fruitful for you.
Yeah.
How long did you flip residential single families for? And was it kind of the same process, or did things change?
I still do. Now it's a lot different and a lot higher volume. I have my own construction company now. So we got 7 full-time employees, and multiple deals going, things like that. But yeah, so after that was so what I did was a lot of the books, it's all about just developing relationships, mentorship, taking people out for lunch. So I used to do that a lot. I still do, take people out for lunch. But one individual that took a liking to me before I got into GM, I was doing a lot of I was gutting out his houses, doing whatever he needed for, maybe 10, 12 bucks an hour or whatever, just doing all the nasty stuff because he had a lot of properties. He developed a lot of trust in me. And I thought he was, pretty good at what he did. So I took him out for lunch and I said, hey, I got, whatever, the 60 grand now from this flip, between all the down payment and materials and all this. What would you do if you were me? That's pretty much all I said or whatever. And I, and had lunch. And 2 days later, he called me, said, hey, I got this deal. Do you want to go 50-50 on it? So that deal, there are many points that changed my trajectory, but that one probably more so than any. I bought the majority of his portfolio now, just over the course of it. And so that was one thing, that the relationship piece, but he opened me up to so many things that I had no idea were there. Probably the biggest was we bought this flip. Again, we were 50-50. We did majority of the work. He was a hands-on guy. He still is to this day when he flips, but we completely redesigned the entire layout. It was a lake house. It was a 2-bed, 1-bath. We turned it into a 3-bed, 2-bath. And just the idea that you could walk into something and just completely reconfigure the property, dramatically improve the appraisal value, based on an additional a bedroom, a better floor plan, vaulted ceilings, whatever it is that you're doing, that concept, it absolutely blew me away. And from there, every deal preceding that, I've become strictly a value add guy, but it was because I had somebody show me something like that could be done. And it was probably the greatest mind-opening thing that had ever happened to me.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like it blew you open and it was oh my gosh, there's so many more possibilities than what I'm seeing right in front of me. I'm curious about the numbers. Do you remember the numbers on that deal?
Yeah. So this place was bad. We did everything. Didn't even have plumbing to it for several years. That's why I got condemned. So we bought it for something like 40,000. How much we put into it, I can't really remember. I remember walking away with it with 25,000. And we sold it for 130. So what would that be? So it would have been 50 grand. We probably put 30 or so into it, 40 into it. But again, we did everything on it, ourselves. So.
And it seems like, the deal itself was great, right? You made some money, but the real value came in the partner, right? And I think a lot of people, including myself for a while, were afraid to partner because it's complicated. You got to set up structures. What if it doesn't go right? What if you lose their money? But sure, you made $50,000 or whatever it was on this deal, but the relationship is what you do. So even if you lost money on the deal, I bet you that deal would have been probably still your most valuable.
See, I did everything in reverse. Now I hang around with lawyers. Now I hang out with accountants, and they all smack me all the time. Hey, you gotta start this entity. You gotta start that entity. Back then, I don't know if I even cared. I was just I'm just going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. And then we'll go from there. We'll figure out the pieces. So as far as starting entities and stuff like that came a lot later, and something that people should do and should definitely consult. But back then, I just really wanted to work with this guy, really. I knew he was better than me. I knew he could show me things that I could never show myself. And just that one deal, like I said, it's been, I learned so much.
Yeah. And one thing I want to get into too. So, it sounds like you've got a quite the successful house flipping business. One aspect to that, which you briefly touched on, was starting your own construction company. And so I love that. Right. And I'm not sure if you do this, you can tell us if you do, but if you start your own construction company, you can kind of get paid in two ways, right? You can get paid by obviously saving on the costs of what would it be to hire another construction company, but also like you could take on other clients. Right. And so you got multiple ways to make money by doing flips and helping out other people.
Sure.
So love that. One, do you do that? And two, like, what is it? How does someone start a construction company? Like, what would be one thing that you recommend as like a first step?
First, you gotta understand construction or whatever trade you're going to try to do, right? So there are a lot of bad, being in construction it's an incredible trade. There are a lot of incredible people. It's also a very tough industry, as I'm sure a lot of people have come across working with general contractors and all that. So to get into your point, like I do very little working for other people. It's messy. You're working on other people's timelines. So I'll do it for clients and things like that. But we almost 100% exclusively work on our personal projects, whether it's commercial or residential. But yeah, I mean, you got to get, builder's license, generally speaking, if you're going to do large, dollar transactions, if you're going to pay yourself, things like that. If you're going to pull permits, you got to have a builder's license. Or work under a builder. So one of the two things. So yeah, to answer that question, definitely beneficial. I do very little working for other people, like I said, occasionally, but it's not too fun. You can make money, but it's a brutal industry.
I wanted to ask you before we leave this topic and this person that was like a mentor to you, what was the value that you think you added? Because I think a lot of times people are looking for a mentor, but they don't feel like they have anything to give in return. And so they don't actually make that leap, invite the person to lunch and all that. So
what I did is I knew this was before. I mean, this is well previous, probably a year or two previous to actually becoming his partner. I went and worked for him for $8 an hour. Even back then, like that was a low wage, but I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'll do whatever crappy things you don't want to do, right? So I was taking toilets off. I was cleaning out places after his tenants, right? All the things that no one else wants to do, but I wanted to work for him. I wanted to understand it. He's like, dude, you're worth way more than that. So kind of went up in pay. Then from there, I started like doing, side jobs for him that I was good at, some exterior construction back then, things like that. So that was the value initially, was that obviously he recognized that I was a hard worker, I was honest, I was trustworthy, things like that. And something that I've always done, because there have been a lot of people that have, I consider mentors. Number one, I've never asked anyone to be a mentor of mine. I just decided to go add some value to them. And number two, I loved Gary Vee's book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. It's kind of how I live my whole life. I read that book well after I developed that concept. But my idea of mentorship is give, and then, ask for something in return. And so in that relationship, in some of the other relationships, some of the people that I hold near and dear to my heart that have, really built me into the person and man I am today, I've repeated that over and over and over again. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. I just want to get in your atmosphere. I want to breathe the same air you're breathing. I want to understand fully like what you're doing, why you're doing it. And I'm willing to, sacrifice money in return, in a lot of those cases. So
I love that, man. And I love how you could figure out a way to bring value to this guy. I think one thing a lot of new people starting out who are looking for mentors is they either ask, hey, like, can you be my mentor? And even if they don't do that, they're like, they even may just ask, how can I help you? Right. But like, that is work to ask me or Z or you, like, how can I help you? It's like, hey, I see you're doing this project. Do you need someone to clean up after the construction's done? Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be great. Right. Like that would be something that's value add versus like, tell me how you can help. Don't ask me how you can help. And I think that's huge.
I had a couple of people ask me recently, hey, can I come help or whatever? I'm like, sure. You can do two things. You can take these lists, get, run them through searches, pull a number, whatever. And it always amazes me how people, oh, well, I don't really want to do that. I'm like, all right, I don't know what else I could do. Like, you want to come in, hang out with me? Like there's a project. But yeah, I mean, that was something I don't know. I instinctively understood, I guess. Where I developed that, I'm not really sure. But, I just really understood that, people that obviously they're super busy, but I can add value just by hustling, just by doing something that they don't want to do. And usually it's the dirty work or whatever.
Dude, you developed that from being a star athlete, right?
That's right. If you self-proclaimed.
Yeah, self-proclaimed star athlete. Because if you think about it, right, like, let's take who's the best. Let's say LeBron James, right? He's the best basketball player of today's era, right?
Not even a football player. Come on.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, get a football player.
I'm sure. The first guy that comes to mind is Tom Brady.
But he's a horrible athlete. Great quarterback, horrible athlete.
All right. Calvin Johnson. He's a Detroit Tigers. All right. Okay. We'll do Calvin Johnson.
Not the Tigers.
The Lions. I actually know more about sports than I'm showing myself right now. So Calvin Johnson, right? He was like the best wide receiver in the league for the years that he was playing, right? Yeah. And he got paid, let's say, $20 million a year, right? I don't know. But like, how high do you think he can jump? How fast can he run? How, like he can probably, maybe his vertical is like 3.5 or 4 feet, right? And like, Brad, what's your vertical?
Not that.
Right. So let's say it's like 2.5 feet, right? So let's say it's half of that, but no one's going to pay you $15 million or $10 million to jump half as high as Calvin Johnson, right? But it's like that incremental like inch that people are paying for that no one can get to. And I think like athletes just have that, and that's in their head. I think that's their motivation, is like they have to be like an iota better than everybody else. And if you take that to real estate, it works in all facets of life. 100%.
Yeah. And that's why I absolutely love interviewing some of the house hackers. It blew me away when and I'm sure you've met quite a few yourself, but we've interviewed several NFL players, NHL players, and they were, a lot of them were house hacking around the country in the individual spots. And like, it's a lot of times it's built into us to be scrappy, especially when, we maybe weren't the Calvin Johnson of the league or whatever. Like you had to work your way up. Like a lot of those guys just house hacked because they had to. They were on small salaries, or they were on week to week, month to month, smaller contracts. And it's but those carry over, like those same traits: delayed gratification, the ability to be scrappy, the ability to seek mentorship and take direction and read and really digest. For sure.
I mean, I just love the parallels between sports and business and life. So, all right, Brad, let's get into a little bit about your real estate stuff, right? Because I know you're a realtor. We've referred you a couple people. How did you go from house flipper to real estate agent? Was it just to save on the commission to the flips? Or let's talk about that transition.
There were so I transitioned to house hacking after that. So the next one I did 203K loan. That was a nightmare because no one understood it. But I learned a lot from it. And it was really just, I had a string of like 3 really crappy agents. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to get licensed. So that's basically my origin story, and it grew from there. But yeah, so go ahead.
Sorry, I just want you to tell people what a 203K loan is, just quickly, because jargon sometimes is hard for people.
Yeah, FHA has a 203K program. It's a construction loan, or it's a renovation loan, I should say. VA has it, conventional has it. There are a few of them. But yeah, back then, I mean, I just heard it from Brandon Turner. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. The lender told me he knew what it was. He didn't. Realtor said he knew he was. He didn't. So it took me like 4 months to close, and I'm pretty sure I got some gray hairs. But since then, I learn it. I understand it. Matt Picaro, like if anyone's really interested in it, at the 203K way on Instagram, Facebook, he's a good friend of mine. I mean, he really fully understands it, and he has easy actionable steps if somebody's interested in something like that. It doesn't have to be 203K. It could be a home pathway for conventional, and VA has a similar product, but they're great products. So for me, I bought a 3-unit, and because I had partnered with that individual and had took a 2-unit to a 3-unit, I found this 4-unit that no one else wanted in town, and I'm like, I'm going to turn it into I found a 3-unit. I'm like, I'm going to turn it into a 4-unit. I'll live in the 4th unit, and this will be like the best cash flowing property in town. Turns out I was right. And it was a lot of fun doing that. that place was a disaster. So we gutted the entire thing, all new HVAC, all new plumbing, all new all that. So turned it into a 4-unit, bought it for, $105,000. I think I did because FHA had some red tape around certain things, and I had a decent amount of money from my last flip. So I took about half of it I did a $70,000 rehab. I did half of it from FHA, half of it without. So like the 4th unit, I did all on my own dime, just because they were kind of being difficult with it at the time. In retrospect, there was a way to do that, but again, no one understood what I was trying to do, and they didn't understand the loan in general. So yeah, added the 4th unit. I was like sleeping on plywood. My wife, who was my new girlfriend at the time, walked in. She's like, "You can't live like this." So so I had to. It was another scrappy move. We did added the 4th unit. We make about $2,000 a month in cash flow now on that property. It's worth 4 times what I bought it for. Or 3+ times what I bought it for. So it's a lot of fun. Learned quite a bit on that one.
Okay, so if there's one theme that you seem to have through all of your real estate career to this point, it's construction.
Yeah.
And I am known for telling people that when you're house hacking, you really shouldn't do a rehab. Just like get tenants in, because the rehab's going to cost money. You're not able to rent it out, so it actually delays you from getting your next house hack.
Sure.
Assuming you're pulling from your down payment money to do the rehab.
Sure.
So I'm hoping maybe that you have a contrarian view to me, or do you not?
No, you don't want to. I mean, yes, there are a lot of benefits to it, right? I usually what I'll tell people is this: like, if you're willing to put up with headaches, and you're willing to kind of be scrappy and have a lot of problems, and stuff, like, go for it. If you're trying to just get into it, like you said, it's probably not the right way to go. For me, like, I was willing, like, I guess my whole philosophy up until maybe a couple of years ago, where I really started to become maybe a more mature investor and really be more, break down certain systems and stuff, was just like, my philosophy was, if something goes wrong, I'll just outwork the problem. Like, if I have to throw another 100 hours at it, but I get through it, like I got through it, and so I was just willing to do that. So that's why I was willing to take on a lot of these things. Most people aren't. They have jobs, they have, lives. I didn't have much of that. Real estate was my life. So something that I forgot to mention, it's always one of my favorite stories, is in the middle of that first flip that I did, I had NFL red zone, right? It was my favorite thing in the entire world, but it was delaying my flip. So I cut the cord on that. I threw it in the dumpster. They charged me $150 for not returning the cable box, and I've never had cable TV since. So that's really where my productivity started to kick in. But yeah, it was, construction, if you have the right people, yeah. But a lot of times, like you said, getting tenants in, getting on the next one could be the better move as well.
So you mentioned earlier that there were a few turning points in your life, and I'm wondering if you can take like a quick zoom out and
Sure.
maybe tell us a couple of those points where it really shifted. And the first one was partnering with this guy and doing the lake house remodel. What are some others that really changed your trajectory?
Yeah. First, it was looking at people that were maybe 10 years older than me, in my area, town, whatever, and realizing that, getting a bigger truck or more fancy this, more fancy that, like, that's not what I want to become. So that was like number one. Number two, like, when I got into General Motors, my thought was, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm going to be rich and, whatever, I've made it. After a little bit, I quickly realized that, like, I scared myself, because I'm like, I'm going to leave GM by 30. And I kind of scared myself when I said that in my head. And then I started telling people about it, and they're like, you're bonkers. So I realized that I couldn't tell anyone about it, but like, looking at their lives and seeing like the trajectory they were on, like, that was another one. I'm like, okay, this clearly isn't the path that I want to go. Like, great life, you can have a great family. General Motors is an incredible company, but like, just not the life that I was meant for. So that was another one. Partnering with somebody and helping me envision the ability to like completely redo, a space, a property, bedroom count, additions, whatever, vaulted ceilings, all those sorts of things. Another, crazy turning point in my design and development career. Meeting, my best friend's dad, he was a broker. He really introduced me to quite a few different things, but really being not only a businessman, but somebody with a high level character in business, because, and that's something that I've really is certainly more recently really focused on is my reputation and character, because the more I'm in the industry, I come up with a lot of people that maybe aren't the people that I want to become in business.
Okay, man. So yeah, this is awesome, right? This is getting to be a loaded episode with tons of gold. So if you have to go back and listen to it, I highly recommend it. Before we end, we got to hit on a couple more things though. One question I have, a lot of people are doing these rehabs. Sure. I just want one thing. What is the number one thing you see that will add the most value to a house?
Yeah, I mean, number one is square footage. So every time that I go into a property, the
finished square footage or unfinished
square footage?
Finished square footage.
So, and that means heated, right? So number one thing that I do when I go into a property is see how I can maximize square footage. The most recent flip, we just sold it 10 days ago, added 125 square footage, right? So had I added a bedroom in that area, that'd probably be a $7,500 appraisal, increase, approximately speaking. Adding 125 square feet, I think was 15,000. Oh. You know what I'm saying? So that is something to where, so all we did, it had basically a 3-car garage. So we did, of course, we pulled permits and all that, but we kicked out into the garage, made it a true 2.5 car garage, still a very nice size, but made a very big master suite. So added a full bathroom in there, walk-in closet with all that extra square footage. So that's something that's like number one on my goal when I go into there. How can I add any additional square footage if possible without actually building out, because that's expensive. Number two, bedroom count. Anytime I see a 2-bedroom anywhere over, sometimes 800, but usually 900 to 1,000 square feet, I know that there's at least a possibility that if you rearrange it, you could make it into a 3-bedroom. So there's another huge, and again, sometimes it's, depending on the neighborhood you're in and the market you're in, but usually in my market, anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000, maybe 20,000 you'll get added for a 3rd bedroom. And then 4th bedroom, you get an addition. 5th bedrooms, generally speaking, aren't, 5th and above, you don't get a huge valuation for. So trying to get a 3rd or an additional bedroom, and then half bath, full bath, another bathroom. That's another value add. So little things like that. We'll get, being a owner of brokerage and seeing it from the side that, of course you guys see as well now, is I'm always looking at it from a valuation side, from the perspective of an appraisal, because, added value, adding more, curb appeal and things like that, valuable to the consumer. But a lot of times isn't valuable on an appraisal, right? Like, they're going to give you the same. It always boggles my mind, like one of my goals in life is to change some of the aspects of the appraisal process. And I'm going to do that for the next 50 years. But like, you'll get the same valuation for decks, no matter what you do with it, right? They're going to rubber stamp your deck valuation. They're going to rubber stamp your outbuilding, no matter what it is, no matter what I have out there, at least in my market. So I'm always looking at it from that perspective. And then I take it a step further and say, okay, how can I add something to the consumer experience? What's the best value add to the consumer experience as well? So we do in my area, I do a lot of vaulted ceilings and things like that.
Awesome. So you mentioned prior that the kind of the final turning point, or at least one of the bigger turning points, was your friend's dad, who was a broker. And it sounds
Sure.
And I know that you have a brokerage now, right?
Sure.
And so maybe like, what does your brokerage do? How are you different from other people? Like, what's your deal there?
Like, what are the details of the brokerage?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had 3 shitty realtors, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a stat out there where it's like 87% of realtors fail in their first year or two. So it's because 87% of them suck. And so you got to find the 12%, which is hard to do.
Yeah.
And so you decided, okay, you'll just be a realtor. And it sounds like that, while you do mostly construction for yourself, you are actually taking on other clients to be.
Yeah. So to be totally, my brother runs completely the construction side of things.
Okay.
So last year I approached him, said, listen, we need to, he's been a contractor for 15 years. I said, listen, I'll fund the entire thing. I need to get you over here. Let's come in together. Let's do this because I was just so, right now, and COVID has really put this all on steroids. It's incredibly challenging to find labor. And I've had this kind of idea that, and it was kind of a infant idea back in the day, but right now I really think like last 50 years, the greatest commodity was access to capital. Like from my perspective, the greatest, commodity the next 50 years is going to be labor. Specifically, at least for the industry that I'm in development, redevelopment, things like that. So I really wanted to create a company around that, not to necessarily service, do a kitchen remodel or whatever for consumers, but to service my development redevelopment company, because I was just so sick of working on contractor schedules that I wanted to bring it in-house so that we could be more efficient, understand better, know, if there are problems, it's on us and we can address it rather than, chasing down. So there's that aspect. So again, just to be clear, like I don't have a whole lot of role in the day-to-day of that. I have a little bit, but yeah, for the brokerage, we have agents. So I started out selling just a little bit. I view myself as, whatever, I'll just hold my license and just use it for my own deals. So the first year that was kind of the ideal. Second year, I sold 6 figures, and it just kind of progressed from there. And I was, again, those first few years, I was working third shift and just working all day in real estate, General Motors between those two. And then, more recently this year, started brokerage. So we have agents in here. We have a full-time wholesaling team. So they source a lot of my deals. They source a lot of my, investor client deals, things like that. So, and then also, I'm buying a fair amount of raw land right now because next year we're gonna start building. So we're kind of wholesaling for that, and I got some clients that are also looking to do something similar. So yeah, that's the origins of the brokerage. I have partnership. So again, I'm very strategic about partnering. I think it's that probably, if you'd asked me what was the other turning point, or like for me, and I learned it in sports, was the, especially, I mean, football is an incredible team sport. Like, you have one break in the chain and, your entire team is going to suffer for that. And so I fully understand that you go much further, much faster with a team approach, rather than a do-it-yourself approach. And so, I've applied that to the construction. I've applied that to the brokerage, to my investing, community. To a lot of my private lenders, I pay more than other people because I love the terms that, they trust me more, So to me, it's all about spreading the wealth, making it mutually beneficial. And for me, I mean, I've done very well doing that.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love that. And I think that's so true where, you have to partner, you have to do you have to stay in your 20%, right? And whatever your 20% is, it's probably not a construction company. It's probably not wholesaling. It's probably not, your 20% is probably like starting a brokerage, right? And so how do you stay in that and just pound 100%. That? And I think that's something that I learned this year too. Yeah. So awesome, dude. We are running out of time here. So we're going to head into the final part of our show. But before we do you have any words of wisdom for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds daunting, and it sometimes can be, at least for people that, if they want a house hack, if they want to, reach out to, all three of us here. But at some point, you just have to start. Like you look at my story. I mean, I lost everything I had when I was 20, right? Like, and so I'm not advocating that, right? But so this is what I tell people: if you hire a good realtor like Craig, if you get an inspection on the property, you get it appraised, right? And you figure out a way to, at least lower your cost of living in doing that. If your goal is a house hack, and I know that this show kind of centers around it, and myself included, like that's a win, because I started out and I lost everything, right? So like, if you literally just hit a base hit, that gets you the confidence in the game that 95% of people will never accomplish. Like, it's that momentum theory. And that's what I've applied throughout my life. Like, the saying is, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Like, that is 100% true. But if you don't take that one swing and you get into it, you'll never be ready for that teacher to come. Like those other people that strategically came in after, in my life after that, they would have never been there. Or I should say this, they would have always been there, but I would have never been ready and receptive to receive those sort of, right timing blessings or whatever you want to call it, from those type of people that really spoke into my life or helped in my life. It was all because, I took strategic approaches. Again, a lot of the things I did, I wouldn't necessarily advocate again. You can, if you'd like, but if you literally just, take that base hit and get into it, like those teachers in your life will come.
For sure. You probably had them before too. You just don't remember them because they weren't significant. And I think we all probably have. But all right, Brad, I love that advice. Just get started and, look out for those mentors when look out for opportunities to for themselves.
The final four.
All right, Brad. So what are you reading right now? You said you're a big reader. Probably have something good.
So right now I'm reading, going actually back through a book Gary Keller wrote. It's called Shift. I think kind of in the industry, we're headed towards more of a shift rather than, like any kind of severe recession. And I think that's a good thing. And that's, historically true. I think, so I love the book. It's a shift mentally. It's a shift in the market. So, what that book is kind of centered around is how the coming shift might happen in the real estate sales industry, but it really revolves around all things real estate, and being ahead of the curve mentally and preparedness for it. And what I really love about the book is I've always, and increasingly more that I've got more and more, like you hear all kinds of people advocating, all kinds of outlandish things, right? I'll never forget, like I used to lose sleep in 2015 when Robert Kiyosaki was screaming like the real estate market's going to crash, like sell it all, whatever. And he was screaming. I'm like, oh my God. I'm gonna be like holding the bag on this one. Like I'll never be able to get out. And since then, at least in my market, probably in every other market, like the real estate market has tripled. And so it's not about timing. It's not about predicting. It's about preparing yourself mentally for when shifts come. And so people ask me a lot, like, why are you still flipping? Like, what happens if, and I'm like, I'll shift, right? Like if we're in the middle, that's why I have strategic private money lenders. I don't work with hard money lenders. I don't like working with institutions when you're talking about short-term capital, because what I want to do when things shift is shift personally, right? So every note that I have on my flips, we have the option to shift into a long-term note, right? So I can quickly turn it into a rental. Rental demand, if we have anything like some of the previous recessions, rental demand is usually increased because people get pushed out of the residential buy side. So that's the book I'm reading. It's definitely been a great read, and I think it might be my third time through it.
Great. Yeah. You always need to have a plan B. I think that's really important when you buy a house. It's like, okay, this is the perfect plan, but if that doesn't work out, what is the plan B or C that I can turn this home into? So having different rental strategies, I think, is really smart. All right, Craig, what's this question number 2?
All right, Brad, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think it's probably, quite a few people have really advocated that, put business third. I love business. I love real estate, but I really try to put it in its place, not allow it to run my life and thinking, not allow possessions and things to run why I do things and what I do it. Like I do real estate and I do the things that I do because I absolutely love it, and like I wouldn't start a construction company. I wouldn't do some of those things if I didn't like absolutely love the challenge. And that's really what it is. Like it creates a challenge. Like there's constant problems, there's constant problem solving. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. So that's why I do that. But I am very, very, like that mentor that's a broker, like he also, he's a pastor as well. And so that was one of the reasons why I really, kind of became close with him, because he really put everything in perspective. Like he's the top commercial broker in the area. And, but he's really able, like I look at his life and I say, man, like he's respected. He's one of the most respected individuals in the community. He's respected by his family. He's respected by the community. He's respected outside of real estate and business. And that's the kind of person I want to be. So that's probably the advice that really stuck with me.
What are the top 2?
God and family, making sure that, now I have a daughter now. Somehow I've probably my best sale has been to keep my wife house hacking all these years. So, well, first getting her to marry me, but than to get her to keep house hacking with me. So my sales skills are still strong.
Craig's all chuffed because he's engaged right now. So he's like, oh yeah, I just got her to agree.
Yeah, I got her to,
so he's feeling all excited about it. Well, this is a great segue to our question number 3, which is about your why. So it sounds like you just said what it is, but will you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah. Family is definitely a part of it. I haven't figured it out. It's still just that there's something in there, like, and I think all great, probably all 3 of you as well, like all great entrepreneurs, talk about it a little bit, but there's just something in me that says that there's something there, and it's not real estate, it's not development, it's not the things that, that I love doing. Like it's something greater than that involves people, and so I haven't quite figured it out. I think about it a lot, but it's just something that keeps me going. It's not the money, it's not the, like notoriety or anything like that. It's just, giving back in some way. And we do a lot of that, my wife and I, and in the community and within our, friends group and church and things like that. So it's something, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I'd say it's also a moving target. So it changes.
Yeah.
But I think knowing that is part of knowing your purpose. And as you develop that and understand it more, it becomes a little more clear. But
sure.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
All right, Craig, give us your crazy question.
All right, Brad, in all the houses you've seen, what is the weirdest thing you've seen in any house?
I go into way too many houses. I've seen sex swings. I've seen, so I just bought the worst house I've ever been in my entire life. And it actually kind of infuriated me walking through it. But, they had several kids. They had 7 kids in it. It wasn't a very big house, 1,000 square feet. Just absolutely disgusting. It got condemned by animal control, by health department and our jurisdiction. So, and I have never to this date been a part of all 3 condemning a property. I've seen 2 of the 3. Yeah. So, everything you can name was in there. Human feces, animal feces. We found 13 dead animals in there. He was a poacher. So we found 11 deer antler skulls around the property. We found, it was a very, very disgusting place. Kids were living in a true attic. One of our workers, he's phenomenal. He really should have his own company, but we've developed a different approach where we really spend a lot of time trying to develop these, construction workers into leaders of the community and stuff like that. So he loves working with us, and he was abused as a kid. So him and I partner on, that's what this project is for. We're doing it to give back to, that place is going to be basically a halfway house for domestic violence. And, but anyways, he went through this cell phone because he was just hell bent on figuring out what was in the cell phone that one of the kids had, because he was just so infuriated. And what we found on there was honestly, just, I'll probably never forget those images. And so that house was something else, but we gutted it. We reframed it. We took the whole roof off because it had, they probably had meth fires is what we assume. And so we took the whole roof off, redid the entire thing. Honestly, I probably should have burned it down, but we wanted the story of it to kind of resurrect it from the ashes. So it's been cool. That's been my favorite, by far my favorite deal I've ever done was that one. Oh. We're about halfway through.
Awesome, man.
Wow.
That's you've been through a lot for sure.
There was I didn't even mention the fleas and bed bugs, man. I walked in there for 10 seconds before I bought it, and I had at least 1,000 fleas on me. I had never seen anything like it.
It's amazing what people can live in sometimes.
I know.
All right, man. So last question, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. Bradley LaBrie, certainly by all means, you can DM me a lot of time. You can, even if you wanted my number, you could Google search me. I'm sure you find it. It's everywhere. House Hacking Success is where we've had Craig on for an interview. So if you ever want to, listen to podcasts, listen to Craig's podcast, that's out there. But, and we have some free, I have a little ebook and things like that. If anyone wants to understand house hacking or something like that, but reach out to me. I'm an open book. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy kind of relaying the confidence that I have. And yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. And I know we'll be in touch. So we'll see you around.
Cool. Hey, you guys have a great night.
All right. Later, dude.
Thanks.
And that was Bradley LaBrie from House Hacking Success. Z, what'd you think of Brad?
Yeah. I mean, wow, what a big story. There was just so much there today. But I think he really came up with so many good learning lessons. I love the way that he took kind of that rich dad, poor dad approach where he found a mentor and started working for him really cheap. And then over time showed his value and really like created a rich relationship. And now he's bought most of that guy's properties and they're friends way down the road. And I just think he showed a lot of hustle.
Mhm.
And I really respect that.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing to get out of this episode, and there was a lot, it's that if you're looking for a mentor, go find someone and do something for them, and you think of the thing to do, right? I just think that is such a valuable advice, because a person will change your life more than a house will. It will more than a house hack, right? Someone that can teach you to do multiple house hacks, right, would be really great. So yeah, I think that would be my one takeaway. What would you say if you had one takeaway from everything Brad said? What would it be?
I really like that he was talking about the turning points in his life. I think sometimes people get into a place of feeling stuck or analysis paralysis. But if you really zoom out, there are these points in your life where something just as small as a chance meeting at a meetup or a book or something can really like give you that light bulb moment that changes your life. And so kind of what I think is just keep moving, keep
Mhm.
going forward. If you feel like you have a spark of just a little bit of interest in real estate, get out there and meet more people that do that, because that might be your turning point or moment. So yeah. Of
Yeah,
course you love everything that I do. I'm just so cool.
that's right. Everything you do, Z, I just love. Yep. Especially your surfing skills.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say that if anybody listening to this episode is inspired about becoming an agent or curious about it, all three of us are agents and we're happy to chat with you about it. So feel free to reach out to Craig or I, and we'll talk to you.
Yeah, and if you could, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you can. It just tremendously helps the show. And if you leave a review, take a screenshot and send it to us on Instagram so we can shout it out for you. We just love that. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.